All right, here with Jimmy Filingeri, head coach Lourdes High School, but host of Clearing the Bases podcast, but also helps NTIS, does Northeast stuff for USA Baseball. So, Jimmy, you and I have had some really good interactions here the last 3-4 years on youth side. So, thank you for jumping on with me.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Who have you enjoyed having on your podcast?
Everybody. I mean, I've had so many guys on that. If you would have told me when I first started my show that I would have had these people on my show, I would have laughed at you. And I mean, it goes right down the line from, Sheets, Chaffin. I don't want to name people because I'm afraid I'm going to forget somebody. Springer, Mongero. I could keep going. These guys are fantastic.
When did you feel like it was time to start? Because you're pretty much dedicated to youth baseball. I know you get into other things, but when did you feel like, okay, this is what we need to do to help? Because it's a great idea. We don't have a lot of voices in that space, so I feel like it's a great idea.
It really was. We'll say it was simple. The way it happened was somebody talked me into doing the podcast, and I had always been an advocate for youth baseball, especially for the little league, community-based baseball. I always felt like that's where the kids need to get their start. That's where they need to cut their teeth. And I mean, really, somebody talked me into doing my show. When they did, I said to myself, well, I can't do like what a Ryan Brownlee does and deal with college age players and stuff and college coaches, because that's above me. What I really know is the youth area. So I figured, let me try. And again, one of my biggest pet peeves had always been that youth coaches fail to, and I'm not speaking with a broad brush, painting with a broad brush, but they fail to educate themselves, and it drives me crazy.
Where did you initially start? I have a hard time with this side of things, and I'm going through it and working through it right now. And I think that's how you reconnected, because we are basically putting one of those practice plans on the ABCA app to video form, and it was kind of daunting. But where I went with that is I have used that practice plan with youth kids. So I've seen that practice plan work with 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. I've also seen that plan work for college kids too. So,
Wow.
And that's one of the intros that I talk about with youth coaches is a good drill or a good segment. You're going to have a pro player that can use it, and you're also going to have a 5-year-old that can also use that segment as well. You may have to modify it, and that's what we dive into a lot in those intros is these can be modified for any age kid. Yes, you have to get creative, and it's also not going to look as good. And that was one of the other things that I wanted that to be a representation of people out there that are trying to be in the youth space. It's not going to look like what you see on TV. It's not. And in
Right.
this generation of social media and editing, I think a lot of mistakes get edited out. And so these are 12-year-old kids that I had never worked with before. Some I had worked with in camp settings, but I told those kids, I was like, if you drop a ball, I'm not editing it. If you airmail a throw, I'm not editing this out, because I want this to be a realistic look of what practice actually looks like.
Sure. And I think that it's interesting that you said that no matter what level, because let's face it, the game is really based on the rudiments of the game. Even the best of the best work on their rudiments. And it's one of the things, again, that was a pet peeve with me, is that, youth baseball coaches don't understand that. Hey, let's teach them how to take a lead off of first base. It's simple. It's easy. And this way, by the time they get up to high school, I don't have to waste time doing that. And they really don't know anything about it.
And it's a microdose approach. Devin Morgan and I have talked about that. A lot of the long-term athlete development coaches talk about this, that it's doing small things every day. You can do base running every day. You can do a minute of base running every day. You can do a minute of base running before you play. And I think this is where we're trying to educate coaches too, is even do this stuff before you play. So I know kids play a lot now, and it's great that kids are playing this much. I wish they would practice more, but it's okay to get them there for 15 or 20 minutes before you get into all your other stuff and spend a small amount of this time every day on these small parts of the game. They will get better at it over time. I don't care what age group they are.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, how would it hurt to, before a game, have you guys run from home down to first and make sure everybody's stepping on the front of the bag? Again, very simple thing. Let them go through it and just make sure that you're watching them. But they're learning something. Instead of, I held a tryout in September, the kids came. Ryan, I'm telling you, every kid except for two or three of those kids stepped right in the middle of the base. And, I'm just shaking my head saying, why can we not, why do we not teach them this stuff? It's rudimentary. It's easy to teach. You don't have to be a Ryan Brownlee or a Jeremy Sheetinger. You don't have to know that level, but you should be able to teach yourself those very small, minute things that are going to make these kids better.
By the way, you can do it in the parking lot too. You could take athletic tape and tape a base down. Like, you don't need a lot of equipment. I think that's what we'll show in those video segments too, is you don't need a lot of video equipment. You don't need a lot of space either. Those of us that have been in cold weather parts of the world have had to do this in a hallway, in a class, outside of a classroom. We've had to do base runnings in hallways. Like, you don't need a field. You can get this stuff done without a dedicated field too, because I think that's one of the things we always hear. Well, we don't have enough field space. We don't have enough field space. You can find a vacant lot to get practice done. You can find a vacant. I guarantee there's a vacant grass area in your town that you could show up and use that space. And any field is a wiffle ball field. You can turn any field into a wiffle ball field.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the high school where I'm coaching, we don't have a baseball field. Okay. So, the football field, beautiful turf football field that we practice there. We practice in the gym. Again, being creative, you have to be creative, but just as long as you're working on things that happen the most in the games, it really doesn't matter how you set it up, just as long as they're getting those reps.
Besides base running, what checklists would you hand to people right now? Okay, these are the things. So say we're dealing with the 6 to 8 year olds. These are the things that they should know to do after they get done with you for that season.
Okay, so I think one of the easiest things to teach a young kid, and it makes it's extremely difficult when they get older to break them of that habit, is when they're hitting. Okay, to stay behind the baseball, not get out on the front side. Definitely on my checklist, because again, getting them at 16, 17 years old and trying to correct that is very difficult. Catch play. Oh, put catch play right on that checklist, right on the top. Again, people are out there doing their catch play and the kids believe that it's just a warm up. Just, I'm just trying to get my arm loose. No, it's a drill. All right, let's teach them how to receive the ball. Let's teach them footwork. In your catch play, incorporate some ground balls in there. Okay. Fingers down, get through the ball. They're very rudimentary things, but you should be able to do that. Outfielders, circling the baseball. I can't tell you how many kids I see at the high school level, ball hits the bat and their first steps are in. That drives me nuts. Work them on it. Work them. Once they feel what it's like to drop step, get around the baseball and recover from a ball that may be a little bit shallow. Once they feel that, they're going to be like, wow, this is not as hard as I thought it would be.
And we use cones a lot. That's one of the first things we do with youth camps is I set the cones up. Even during the games, I have cones set up so they know where to stand. But we go to every position on the field with the cone and explain to them why, boys and girls, why they stand in this position, what happens then if we're in a double play situation. Again, and just going through the different parts for them of teaching. Those are the, again, rudimentary teaching things. Is most kids have never even been taught, okay, if I'm playing right field today, this is straight up. I'm going to line myself up with third base and second base. And that's basic straight up positioning in the outfield. And then if coach wants to move you, they'll move you. But those are things that you can spend a little bit of time on pre-practice before you get into it, even if you just had a piece of paper to start and drew the field on the piece of paper for them and marked X's, and then have those reminders of cones on the field for them when you do get your practice portion of, they're going to forget. I'm sorry, coaches, but kids are going to forget. They need daily reminders of all those things, and that's that microdose approach of just small things every day of just reminding them. And you know what? If you do that for 2 straight weeks, I guarantee kids are going to know where they're at least supposed to stand.
And I agree with you 100% because I'll use this past year taking leads off of second base. Okay, so we went through it during the games. My guys weren't doing it. Okay, now whose fault is that? It's mine. Okay, I didn't drill them enough on it. So made a little note. We got to practice every single practice leading up to the next game. We spent time on it, and next thing you know, now, like you said, because they forget, they get out there, they go right back to what they've been doing for 10 years or 12 years beforehand. Now you go over it a few times. Now it's like muscle memory. They just automatically do it.
And that goes into your warm up. Again, these things once, hopefully as a youth coach, and I talked about this in the video in one of the intros, I said, yes, it may not be important for a 5, 6, 7-year-old to warm up properly because their muscles, it's not as big a deal, but you are trying to instill good habits to them. But there's nothing wrong with doing a 5-minute warm up and then have them work on leads and steals on the outfield line. You can get your leads and steals stuff done. Okay, we're taking our lead at first base. Okay, we're taking our lead at second base. We're doing our walking lead at third base. You know, if you're practicing 3-4 days a week, or even if you're playing, again, those are things that you can do before you play after they warm up. You can mix in 30 to 40 seconds of leads and steal breaks after your warm up. That maximizes your time. And again, you're reinforcing those good habits over and over and over every day that you show up at the field for training or for games.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, you just hit a nerve when you said walking leads at third base because, again, we went over it a million times in practice, but during the game, my guys wouldn't do it. Ryan, I'm not opposed to during the game. I'm walking down the baseline with them. Okay, we going right, left, right, da 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 da. And I'm actually doing like a practice in the middle of a game, but I can't help it. I feel like it's my obligation to, even at the high school level, continually teach. I try not to teach too much during a game, but in a case like that, it's something I feel that I can do.
And again, as a youth coach, you can remind them at third base, okay, are we contact here? We're seeing ball down where we're taking off, or are we being a little bit more guarded with no outs and where we're seeing the ball through? And that's, so I see so many college games now. That's one of the things that we've talked about. You see a lot more with no outs where it's very similar to a lead at first base and second base. And then if they are trying to get a flying start on a ball into the ground, it will be more of a walking lead. But you're seeing that a lot more. And I think that makes sense to me now because you don't want them being as aggressive with no outs because they're going to see it through. But that's just a small thing that, again, if you work on it, they're going to get better at it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's it. It's all about work. I mean, the practices, we've said it a million times. Practices are for the coaches. The games are for the boys. Let them go do their thing. And then, whatever doesn't go well, you got to look inside and say, hey, it's not their fault. It's mine. We didn't work on it enough. And let's get back there and let's do it. One of the other things, too, that I failed to mention when you asked about the checklist, and this is huge, but I believe that you should start doing this at a very early age, is work on the mental side of the game. As simplistic as you can make it, failure protocols, visualization, process-based goals, all of these things. You can do that with young kids. And the failure to me with the young kids is the biggest thing that they should start working on as young as possible.
Yeah, we talk about the cycle of success. And so when does an at-bat start? And I bring this up with little kids too. So when does your at-bat start? Make sure you have all your equipment ready. In the hole, what are you doing? On deck, what are you doing? This is a great time to introduce breathing techniques to kids when they're in the hole, when they're on deck, as they get their sign. Again, these are all offensive checklists for hitters. Before you get in the box, look down to coach, or if your coach is giving signs from the dugout, look to the dugout. These are all things that you can practice. You can mix these into your hitting segment. And I've seen plenty of youth practices where there's a lot of standing around. If you write this out, you may have kids in that 4 group hitting on the field while everybody else is playing defense. Assign all 4 of those guys, okay, you're getting your helmet and stuff on. You're in the hole, you're on deck, you're walking to home plate. The person that just hit, they may be running now, or they may start that whole cycle back over. Again, you can work on that every day because that's really what translates to them having success offensively. Way more than if you teach them proper hitting position. I've seen this with so many little kids. If you can teach them how to breathe right, they're going to be a lot more aggressive when they get in there. They're going to be able to handle some of the ups and downs of hitting, some of the being scared of getting hit by a ball. It cleans a lot of those things up. And then, yes, how should you handle it if you have a bad at bat? The one we always use with the little guys is if your helmet, glove, bat, if all that stuff you still got it on and you're thinking about your at bat, that's fine. But once all of that stuff comes off, now it's time to focus on playing defense and being a good teammate. I think we have to reinforce that as youth coaches is really a lot of your responsibility as a teammate, as a young kid, is to be a good teammate for your other teammates. Be a good teammate. And I think that eliminates a lot of that failure piece for kids is because they're diving into their teammates and focus on being a good teammate too.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's something that I feel is very, very important that, the team comes first, period, the end. It has to be that way. Last year, I had a kid on the mound, wasn't doing well. I brought in, a relief pitcher, and when the relief pitcher came out, he basically said to him, don't worry about this. We got you. We'll pick you up. And he went to like high five him or fist pump him or something. And the kid off the mound walked right past him, didn't even look at him, didn't acknowledge him, and went right in the dugout. So when the game was over, I said to him, I said, come here, I want to talk to you. I said, sit down. I said, tomorrow afternoon, I said, you're going to report to the JV team for practice. I said, because that's not what we do here. We don't do that. Okay. And I think that, look, did I want to do it? It took a lot for me to do that. It was, it was a harsh penalty, but I guarantee he never does it again because the team comes first.
Great teaching moments. Really good teaching moments. And I think you got to use the transition out too. I read a lot, but the book Art of Gathering, David Kleinen talks a lot about this with speedball. Is your facilitators, you're providing a good experience. I think allowing kids to transition from the real world into what they're doing, and this is where I think a warm up is important for transitioning them from whatever's going on away from the field, transition into it. But then I think you need to have some sort of quick 20 to 30-second transition out. And that might just be get everybody together and say, go Tigers or whatever. There needs to be a defined ending of training too. So we've got to transition into it. I think there needs to be a defined, okay, now practice is over. Okay, go do whatever else you need to do out in the real world at home.
Well, getting them ready for practice, like you said, to put that stuff behind is, I started meditating with my teams before practice starts. And I'll be honest with you, Ryan, when I first did it, I felt awkward doing it. I really did.
You're supposed to. It's supposed to be awkward in the beginning.
Yeah. And, I said, oh, these kids are never going to buy into this. They're going to think this is nonsense. But I said, you know what? Alan Jaeger can't be wrong. All of these guys can't be wrong. So I'm going to stick with it. And you want to know something? You stick with it and the kids understand it eventually. And it really, really helps a lot. And it's basically what you just said. It's just take a few minutes just to put everything behind, start new, clear your head, and let's get ready to do what we have to do.
Yeah, no, I speak a lot on the circuit, so a lot of it is peak performance, but there's some really easy peak performance exercises to get them transition in. Body scanning is a great one where you just basically have them scan down their bodies as they're breathing. If they're sore, tight in any areas, this is really beneficial for college guys and high school guys because they're going to get sore at times. just take a good solid deep breath in through the nose, out through the nose, into those areas to see if you can get those areas to calm down. The mindfulness raising exercise is awesome. You actually teach kids how to be mindful, and actually teaches mindful eating, where it gets them to slow down and pay attention to what they're doing. That actually teaches them what flow state actually feels like, because as we know, and if you ask a kid, your best day that you ever had, it's probably going to feel a little bit like it's in slow motion, and that's what flow state actually is. But you could train flow state by having them. If anybody that is interested in that, I do talk about it, but it's called the Raise in Mindfulness exercise, and there's a script that comes with it. So that's the great thing with what we have available now in the internet, is you can search a lot of this stuff out, and you'll be able to find things on it. Concentration grids are fun. A concentration grid is a good pre-practice to get their mind active. You can make that competitive. You can actually time concentration grids. Again, this doesn't have to be long. I know it's a 100-square grid, but you could say, hey, we're trying to get the first 10 knocked out, or first 20. We're going to time and see where you're at. Again, you can gamify some of those things. There's a million different things, and then you can have them do something like that on the way out too. So, and again, that does not take a lot of time. You're talking about maybe a minute or two.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anything, like you said, that can make them, get into that present state and, be where your feet are, so to speak. Excuse me.
What do you feel like coaches are doing well in this space?
Youth coaches?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it depends. There are some youth coaches out there that are fantastic, and they're doing everything that you and I are talking about. I don't see, one thing I will say is I don't see a lot of coaches work on mental stuff. That I don't see a lot. But I think it's something that should be. But it's just like anything else. There's good and there's bad. There's guys, and for the most part, when I'm talking about youth baseball, believe it or not, I'm talking about travel, because, the travel world is, in my opinion, the travel world is upside down. Okay. They play a ton of games. They don't practice. They don't learn anything. So if you're a good ball player, you're being robbed of getting better and becoming one of the best baseball players. And if you're an average baseball player, you're being robbed of becoming a better baseball player. So if you get hooked up with a good organization, yes, they're going to teach you all these things that we've just been talking about. You get hooked up with a guy who's only interested in that plastic trophy at the end of the tournament, it's not teaching anything. It's not good.
Yeah, when my son was coming out, I'm a college coach, and I'm not on that side, but I really did pay attention to what their schedule was going to look like, because I really did want them practicing, playing more pickup games early, getting acclimated to it again. My son was a 5-sport athlete growing up, so didn't have a lot of time to get ready to go on the mound or with his arm at times. We would spend time, but we didn't have a lot. I was gone a lot. So I was very cognizant of what my son's training schedule looked like. Were we going to go play a tournament with 8 games the first weekend to start the year? That was a no for me. I'm sorry. And this is where the parents have to take ownership of some of this too. And really, if you look at the college and the pro schedule, their early season stuff doesn't mean as much as the late season stuff. And I think that's part of where you can help kids acclimate to that too. High school, same thing. I know some states, every game's important, but not a lot of states. So again, they're building towards something at the end of the year. And I think if we want kids to be good in high school and college professionally, I think it needs to be that same timeline where there's a build up to something that's important at the end of the year, way more, excuse me, important than the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a perfect example. Is last winter, I'm trying to, again, the program is new to me, so none of these kids know me. They don't know my routines. We're going through some winter workouts, and my whole point behind doing this was to ramp my pitchers up slowly. Okay, let's ramp them up slowly. And I get kids that are coming to me and saying, Coach, I can't throw today. I'm like, well, why? Well, I was with my trainer, and, we threw a 30-pitch full intent bullpen, yesterday. And I'm like, no, it's January. Why are we doing that? That drives me crazy. So, again, travel ball coaches could be aware of that. Again, I think, Ryan, really, it goes back to being educated, knowing what is the right way to get these players ready.
And this is where you have to map backwards. This is what college and high school and pro coaches do. So if you're a youth coach, I want you to take your first game against outside competition and map backwards from there. And really, it was an 8-week process to really get guys. We felt like if we started 2 months before we were playing someone else, and it was a slow build. Alan Jager talks about this. This is a slow build to get the arm ready. Yes, they are throwing against their teammates before this happens, but really it was about 4 months or 4 weeks of long toss, easing into bullpens, and then as competition got closer, we would start to ramp up their bullpens. And most of our starters at the college level were maybe going to go 60 or 70 if they were built up as a starter. And so we're seeing youth kids throw 100. Just because the tournament tells you can throw 100 pitches doesn't mean you should throw 100 pitches, because college and pro guys aren't doing that. You look at spring training, first outing in spring training for a big leaguer, they're not throwing 60, 70 pitches against somebody else. They're not doing that. And so for us to ask a 10-year-old, 11-year-old to do what a pro is, we're not asking pros to do. And we are as safe as we can be with the pro and college guys, and they still get hurt. Just know as a youth coach, if you're rolling them out there for 100 and 110 pitches that first weekend, their muscle's not developed yet, but at some point they're going to get hurt.
Yeah, and I mean, why not? And again, something I never really understood is, why not use other players on your team? Like you said, I know me, the high school level, we do not exceed 60 pitches early in the season for a pitcher. I won't go there. Okay, so my point is at 10, 11, 12, boy, at that age, if you have, let's say, a 12 player roster, well, every one of those kids should pitch. Why not? Why not put them out there so you don't kill everybody? Give them 30 pitches each, 40 pitches each, whatever you want to do, and rotate it. But I think what happens is people are, I don't know, they put so much importance on winning. And at that age, it really doesn't matter.
It's about developing. And that's part of the throwing program that I videoed. Every one of those 12-year-olds, they all pitched, they all caught. Once we were done with quick catch, we played some quick catch games, but then we did 20-foot, 25-foot flat grounds where it was just basic pitching drills. I really like the tap drill where they're working on their lead knee and their glove working together and separating at the same time. I think that's a great place to start. When you're really starting to introduce pitching to young kids, tap drill is a phenomenal drill to start, to teach them lead knee and glove break timing, because again, when you watch the elite of the elite, they break their hands at the same time that their knee's coming down. So, and you can teach a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid that's trying to pitch for the first time. That's really the only drill you probably need to teach them, because they will understand what timing is. Simple setup, but then every kid is catching too. You throw a hat down as a home plate. You don't need home plates. Have them throw their hat down as a home plate. So they would take 5 reps of a kid pitching to a catcher, and then the catcher would stand up and pitch to the other kid. Again, it's a little bit of a sandlot approach. You can mix pickoffs in at that time. You can mix picks to first. If kids are leading off, it's a great way to teach pickoffs to kids. It's a great way to teach secondary inside moves to second base to kids at this point. Again, you can microdose all those things because, again, you're trying to maximize arms, keep kids healthy. And you may have a kid that's undersized at that age, but once he grows and outgrows everybody else, he may end up being your best pitcher out of that group 5-10 years from now.
Right. And how many times have we seen that happen, right? Years ago when I was coaching my son in the local Cal Ripken League, came time for All-Stars for my son's age, and I put my hat in the ring, and they made me the All-Star manager. So one of the other coaches came up to me, and he was upset because I guess he wanted to be the All-Star manager, whatever. So he came up to me and he said, "I don't understand why they made you the All-Star manager." I was like, "Why? Well, what did I do wrong?" And he said, "Your teams are never above 500. So I said, "No, they're not." I said, "Because The kid that you put in right field plays shortstop for me. He pitches for me. He catches for me. The left fielder will play first base. I said, I move them all over the place. Of course, I'm not going to win a lot of games, but I mean, so anyway, that's the mentality is a lot of youth coaches want to win that rec league. I don't want to win the rec league. I want to make sure my guys know how to field a ground ball, how to get through it, and how to follow the throw to first base. I want to know that they can do that.
And all will want to play next year too.
Yes.
That's the other piece of that. You should have been like, well, I get to be the all-star manager because every one of my kids will probably play next year, and I'm not sure. Your kid that only got one at bat in the last 5 games, and when they were in there, they either DH'd or only played right field. There's zero chance that kid's going to want to play next year. Zero chance. And that's where, as youth coaches, you have to look yourself in the mirror a little bit on that is, what am I really in for this for? And if I'm coaching kids right now that don't want to play next year, the year after, I've done them a disservice. And that's what I need to focus on more than anything is if I have a lot of kids that aren't wanting to play the next year, that's on me as a person and on a facilitator, and I'm not providing a great experience for every kid. You need to provide a great experience. Is it always going to happen? No, but you can help with a lot of that, creating a great experience for kids that want to keep playing the next year.
Yeah, I was lucky that the guy who coached with me was my assistant coach on that team, was a dad coach. And, had no aspirations of becoming anything, just wanted to be there, help out, and coach his kids. And I got to say that he taught me what you just said, okay, about making sure that I didn't leave a kid on the bench and only get one, because he would come over and elbow me and say, hey, stupid, this kid's been sitting there for a while, get him up. Oh, geez, okay, to get him in the game. And believe it or not, even though he wasn't a, quote unquote, baseball guy, he taught me so much about how to, make it fun for the kids and make it so that they want to come back. So it was pretty interesting.
And I think if you asked their teammates, they would want the same thing for their teammates too. I think the adults have a way different approach than what kids are about building a community among their peers. Because kids see that too. And kids are empathetic at that age. And I think we have to kind of stoke that fire for empathy that kids have, because I think it, again, not just on the baseball field, it creates a better community out in the real world too.
Yes.
Is because we're trying to help everybody.
Right. And I mean, really, that's what we're doing anyway as coaches in the long run. I mean, the very small percentage of high school players go on to play. Well, let's even back up. Small percentage of youth players go on to play high school ball. It's very, very small, and people need to understand that. So why are we going crazy with all of these, teams that are costing $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 and traveling and hotels and meals? And a lot of those kids aren't even going to play high school ball. So let's make it fun. Let's let them have a good time.
And by the way, parents, you can have all the fun you want at the hotel with your peers, because I think that's a lot of it too now, is what you're seeing. Is the experience is not tailored more to the children. It's tailored towards mom and dad that want to hang out at the pool at the hotel with their friends in the evenings, which is fine too, but just understand that may not be the best thing for your child.
Yeah, I did a show with a husband and wife team that wrote a book called What's the Goal? And it was about youth sports. And they called those tournications, tournament vacations. I thought that was perfect. I was like, that's what it is. The parents are going to have a good time, have a couple of drinks at night, sitting at the patio, and during the day we'll watch a little baseball.
That's what were some of their other tips for providing a good experience for kids? Because I love that title, by the way.
They pretty much, it was the coaching. It was the coaching, and same thing that we talk about all the time, educating coaches. And, they said the same thing. We know there's good coaches and we've run into them, but in their opinion, these are not my words, but they said that they felt that was not the norm. Good coaches were not the norm. The norm was coaches that weren't good. And, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but if coaches would just take the time just to learn a little bit, you don't have to learn a lot, a little bit about what you're doing and how you're supposed to do it, then you're going to be fine.
And also take the kids into perspective too. Like, if I was their age, what would I want out of a practice setting right now? And I know that's hard to wrap our brain around it as you get older, because I think you forget, but I think you have to go back to, okay, we all had good experiences growing up playing whatever sport we played, and we also probably had some experiences that weren't great. What did you really enjoy about that experience when you were that age as a 10, 11, 12-year-old? What did you enjoy about practice? And take those components of what you really liked and add those into your practice plan. And there's also nothing wrong with throwing some balls out there, putting them in small groups and letting them figure some things out for themselves too. Or get soccer balls out, footballs out, anything, and let them figure some free play things out for themselves too. And you talked about with the hitting portion, we use connection balls and volleyballs and dodgeballs in between the knees to keep kids from lunging out. And I think that's a great, show them the drill and let them figure that stuff out. And I do try to emphasize that in the videos too, is sometimes the best coaching is not saying anything at all. It's just introducing something to them and letting them figure that out for themselves too.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I remember that there were times where with hitting, for instance, I was trying to learn as much as I could about hitting, where your feet should be, how you should be, where your weight should be, your ankles, this. Then it dawned on me one day, nobody ever taught me how to hit. Nobody ever taught me. The only thing that my coaches when I was young said was, keep your eye on the ball. Okay. So I took a new approach to training my hitters. Now, a couple of things have to be, your head can't move. You got to keep your eyes on the ball. I want you to stay on top of the ball and I want you to stay behind it. Pretty much that's it. Okay. And then, like you said, let your body take over. Athletes will find a way to figure it out, and they will figure out a way to get that barrel to the ball without us clouding their minds with too much. Your elbow belongs here, your shoulder's there. I think it's more, let them be athletes.
And that's where external cues are going to be way more important. Okay. We're trying to hit this ball up the middle. We're trying to hit this ball the other way hard. We're trying to pull this ball hard. Give them some external cues. Have them play target shooting off a tee when they're hitting. Have them try to hit targets. They'll figure out a way to get that done. Okay, we're trying to hit a ball head high to the back of the cage today, or head high on the field today, and that's your whole goal today. And see how many times you can do that. Those, that self-organization of the body, if you give them external cues. And yes, with young kids, there are time for internal cues. Yes, okay, feet shoulder width apart. Where should your hands be? I think a great place to start with teaching hand placement for young kids. Take the barrel of your bat, tap the back of your shoulder, lift your hands. That's a great internal cue because they can feel where the barrel is then. Okay, tap the back of your shoulder, lift their hands. That gets their hands in a pretty good starting position. Right. Okay, the connection balls or dodgeball or whatever is great for teaching them keeping the weight inside their feet with their knees. Those are things that you can add in for them without having to do a lot of coaching. Connection balls are great underneath the back elbow to feel the back elbow staying in and connected and allowing some rhythm with their hand load. Those are great things and that I've used with 5-6-year-olds in camp. Have them throw medicine balls. A 5-year-old, I've had them. A 5-year-old can throw a 2-pound med ball. They can do it. They've done it. They've done it in youth camp. So I really like jump back drill. I really like scoop to teach hip hinge, loading into their back leg, into their back hip. I really like jump back for that. And I really like scoop tosses to teach hip hinge. And yes, a 5-year-old can do it because I've seen them do it. I've seen them throw a 2-pound med ball. And they have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things you said too is that what I do with younger kids to make it fun is when you said about feet shoulder width apart. Okay, so and there's an easy way to get them to understand that is I just tell them to jump straight up, and when you land, that's where your feet go. And they
squat down. That's a 2-squat drill. Have them squat down twice and then take a swing. They will start to figure those things out. They can flap their elbows twice to stay loose before they take a swing. Those are things that I had college hitters actually used as part of their inbox routines. Like those are things that college guys were using too to help them, but you can teach that to the younger guys also.
Yeah.
A lot of creative fun
dry
stuff
swing,
that you can do with them. Yep.
Yeah, dry swings with the younger guys. I love it. I did a clinic, not this past summer, the one before, and lined up the kids all the way down the left and right field foul line, far enough apart from each other so they could swing, and just did dry swings. And went over and gave, like you said, a couple of cues to kids and this and that. And Ryan, within a very short period of time, say whatever, 15, 20 minutes that we did the drill, the kids swings, and because they're young, they're moldable, their swings changed and everybody looked like Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, there's a weighted bat program in the app, the ABCA app. If you just type in weighted bat program, that was one of our non-defensive. So if we were just going to hit, we always did that weighted bat program. But that's something I've done with 5 and 6-year-olds too, because it teaches a lot of the fundamental components of the swing. Where again, you don't have to do a lot of coaching with that. You just show them what a bat in their elbows drill looks like. Have them do it. Bat out front. Have them do it. It has internal, external rotation. It has slow swings, half swings. It has, without a lot of coaching, just show them what the drill's supposed to look like. Have them go through the drill. And it's not going to look perfect. It's not supposed to look perfect. They're figuring things out. And just understand sometimes as a youth coach, you may introduce a drill to them. They may or may not get it. It may not look pretty, and that's cool. But if you do that every day, small parts of it, it gets cleaned up over time. And it's just the best way to do it for those kids, just by microdosing it every day.
Right. And the other side of that too is that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to understand that. And Steve Springer's one of his best lines that I love is that everybody wants to use the microwave, nobody wants to use the oven. Well, we need to use the oven, okay? Don't expect that whatever you're teaching that kid today is going to make him better in 2 weeks. It's not. It's going to take 6 months, maybe more, whatever it is. But let's look at it in the long term rather than, oh, I'm going to fix this kid's swing and next week he's going to go, 3 for 4 next week. It's not going to happen.
And here are a couple other things with that. Just understand their attention span is going to be their age range, okay? So this is why you also can't spend a lot of time on one activity with younger kids because they don't have the attention span for it and they're going to get bored. So if you're dealing with 5-year-olds, 5 minutes tops. That needs to be tops. Probably maybe 1 or 2 minutes and move on to the next thing. And the other portion of this that coaches don't always think about, please encourage your kids to sleep, get enough water, and eat, because that's the only way they're going to learn from one day to the next. That's a cognitive behavior thing where those markers that they set during practice, the only way they learn any of that is through sleep. So I know that's getting out there a little bit, but just understand, coaches, you can instill good habits in them too as reminders of, okay, hey, if you liked what we did at practice today, if you don't get a good night's sleep tonight, you're not going to remember what we did tomorrow, okay? So that's a way to re-emphasize kind of good habits with younger kids too. And they may not listen to you, but at least you're introducing that to them that, hey, if you want to retain anything that we worked on today, make sure you're eating right, getting enough water, and trying to get some sleep.
Again, you're reminding me of the days when I was coaching youth baseball, because again, we'd go away on a tournament and I would say, okay, guys, we got a 9 o'clock curfew. I want everybody in bed at 9 o'clock. We need our sleep. And my assistant coach would always wind up looking at me and going, oh, come on. And go, 9 o'clock, let them have fun. And we're like, no, we came here to play baseball. They got to sleep. Well, I always would lose that battle. They'd be up 11 o'clock at night running around the hotel.
And that's also where we need to be cognizant of the amount of games we play on a weekend too. Because again, that there's some mental health pieces to that too. If you're running a kid through the ringer on the weekends, they do need to be a normal kid at some point too. And during the week, we need those training sessions to be better too. We're still trying to figure out the sweet spot on all of that. And as we see in the youth summit every year, I do want to kind of get to the youth summit because you did a great job on your notes last year with the Royals.
Thank you.
I just think that we've got to find that sweet spot of, okay, here's enough playing where it's enjoyable for everybody. The tournament providers are still making their amount of money, but this is all ultimately what's best for the kids themselves. because I think that is just a byproduct of if kids have a great experience, word of mouth is the best thing. I think you see with ABCA, we've become large because of word of mouth with people that it's a good experience. I think it's the same thing with youth kids. When they go to school, they're going to tell their friends if they're having a good time at practice or games. And maybe a kid that isn't playing baseball right now, his friends are talking about how much they like it. You might get a few more kids to come out. And then as they're enjoying that process, then maybe that transition from the small field to the big field, we get that 3.2 million youth baseball players. We get more of those kids now transitioning to 90-foot bases too.
Well, I had said it last year, at the summit that, and believe me, I know that this is something that is like impossible, but I just wish there was a way where travel baseball didn't start until you got to the big field, so that, community ball and, rec ball is where you cut your teeth. I just wish there was, and again, I know that it's impossible, but with these new NCAA rules and with the transfer portal and all of that, in a way, I believe it's going to have a trickle down effect. Maybe because, I mean, I was talking to a coach and I asked him to take a look at one of my high school players. And he literally said to me, he said, Jim, he said, we're not looking at high school players anymore. So my point is that if it keeps pushing them down and down, then maybe it'll push kids back into rec ball, because there'll be no reason to play travel ball, because you're not going to get recruited out of there anymore unless you're, Mike Trout.
I mean, they see them anyway, and that's the thing. But even the college guys like it the way it's set up to where it is now. I think they have enjoyed it going back to some sort of normalcy for them. Parents, it's a guessing game. I did it for 22 years. The younger you start trying to recruit kids, it's an absolute guessing game, and I say it a lot too. Even the pro scouts don't have it figured out all the time. There's mistakes made on guys that are drafted. There's also a lot of guys that were never drafted out of high school that are first rounders, and you see it a lot now. I think the closer you can wait to make a decision on someone's timeline to when they actually show up and play for you, there's going to be mistakes, but I think you limit those mistakes because then you figure out what they're actually going to look like a little bit closer when they show up on campus.
Right. But I mean, like I said, if I don't know, if that were to happen, where it would push everything back down, I think it would make the world just so much better. I mean, I had said this on a show that I have coming out like next weekend, I believe it is. But I had said this years ago. I used to hear people complain constantly about recreational baseball, community baseball. Oh, you know what? It stinks, this, that, and the other thing. Well, it's gone away. Travel baseball is now prevalent. And now they say that about travel baseball. So what's the difference? Go back to the way it used to be, where it didn't cost everybody all of this money, and the best of the best competed in travel baseball, because that's the way it was when it first started, right?
My Little League team had one NFL player on it and 5 college baseball players on our one team. There was 8 teams in that league.
Yeah.
But I think rep ball is important. We need to be an entryway for all kids to have opportunities to play, not just a select few that can afford it. It needs to be an entryway for all people to play. And I think Major League Baseball is starting to make some headway with this. The funding is a big part of it, but I just think that's the way that we need to do it to get it to bring it back. But I also think now there's 2 sides of this. I think these are the most athletic baseball players we've ever seen on the mound with what they can do now at that level with what we've seen. But you even said at pre-call, the fundamentals are rugged for even at the big league level. The fundamentals are a little bit rugged, but they can overpower the game with their athleticism. Like this is what you're seeing right now. Is they overpower the game with their athleticism. So if they do make a mistake here and there, it's not as glaring as it was in the past where you needed to be a little more technical on everything because you couldn't just absolutely just overpower the game with your either stuff on the mound or what you're doing at the plate, like they just overpower the game with their athleticism now. Where I think you would see a better brand because kids would be practicing a little bit more than what they're doing now at a younger age.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, last night, Chisholm was on second base. Okay. He gets picked off second base. I think there were no outs and he got picked off second base. I'm like, where were you going? Okay. So whatever the case happened, I believe the Yankees scored a run. And then the next inning, Rizzo got caught up and he got picked off at second base. But Judge came up and he hit a 2-run homer. So to your point, they found a way to overcome that, that flaw, and they still scored the runs anyway.
What are some other things that you picked up out of the youth summit?
The biggest thing that I walked away from there with was how hard it is, to put this back together. Now, we had so many people in that room that are a hell of a lot smarter than me. Okay. And we're brainstorming and talking, and we're having a hard time coming up with ways to do this. And it's gotten, I know I sound like an old man and I can't help it. I'm getting old, but it used to be so simple. You played your little league, you played your high school, and if you were good enough, then you went to play college. And I just wish we could get back to that. But again, to getting back to the summit is, the best minds can't figure out how to put this back together. I mean, I think we'll eventually come up with solutions, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, the biggest thing with any of this is it's the implementation now. I think we've done that for 2 years where it's been kind of the brainstorming phase of things, where now it's getting to here are the things that we need to try to start implementing. And yes, it's daunting, but we need to do it because I don't like throw your hands up. And I think we have enough people now that are getting on board with it to where we can start to implement some things to make it better. I always come at it from what is best for the player. What's best for the player?
Yes.
However we do that and whatever it looks like, what is best for the player? And what is best for the game of baseball itself. I always have come at it that way. I think if you can take away the white noise and really just ask those questions, okay, what is best for baseball? What is best for that age group of player, boys and girls at that age group? What is best for them? Then that's what we should try to do. Because the participation numbers are large. We're right behind basketball. When you look at the Aspen Sports Research stuff, we are right behind basketball. And if you would have had me guess coming in before that information came out, I wouldn't have guessed as close as that number was to basketball. So we're getting kids to participate at a young age. Now, how can we provide a great experience for them to have them want to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that we came up with last year about the ambassadorship program where, each state has a guy that, heads their state and tries and draw people into promote the word. And I also like the idea of, becoming ABCA certified or whatever the certification would be. That I believe is going to take a long time to catch on. But I think the more we push it, and again, we can't make it where it's crazy so that people have to spend a lot of time doing it, because I know that a lot of people don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. I think once we do that and we can get where the coaches understand what they should be doing, maybe we can help that way.
And is that more, do we help more on, you talk about travel baseball, is it more towards, okay, these organizations are basically recognized as organizations that are doing it the right way?
Yes, I love that.
Because then it falls more towards the organization than it does to the individual coach. And then that way a parent can look and say, okay, they are recognized by USA Baseball, ABCA, whatever. They are recognized, okay, this is a trusted resource to where I can actually send my child to where it's not going to be a rogue program or you deal with coaches that are going to throw 2, 3 kids on a weekend, and your kid may or may not get in a bat here and there. Again, though, I think that's probably the way that we need to head. But again, I'm open to anything because we're here as Switzerland at the ABCA. We're Switzerland, so. These are great topics, and hopefully people understand that we are passionate about this. All of us that are involved with our youth travel committees are passionate about trying to help, and it's not pointing fingers. I'm not that type of person. I'm never going to point fingers at people because we're in this thing together. It's a very large pool in the baseball industry. It's a large community. It's a large tribe. Again, it's more of just educating people on providing a great experience for kids.
Yeah, and I mean, you would ask me in the beginning, what prompted me to, go on this crusade with youth baseball, and pretty much that was it, to try and get the word out that, hey, we can do this. It just takes a little bit of, look, I'm a living proof that you can do it. Ryan, I don't know if you know this, but the last time I played baseball, I was a freshman in high school. Okay. I didn't play any high level of baseball. And I've gone up to become a varsity coach, to have a podcast in baseball. I write for the magazine. My point is that if you put a little bit of effort into it, then you could be on top of your game. Now, granted, I still look at it that I still have a lot to learn, but I think we all look at it that way.
Yeah, there's just small things. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, and that's why I like the term facilitators. If you're mom and dad out there listening in, you're a facilitator. You're facilitating a good experience. You'll pick things up as you go. And you can always ask the kids what they like, what they don't like. Did you like practice today? Was practice good? Kids are going to be honest with you. That was always my benchmark anytime I ever did practice with Jackson and his teams, is if he wanted me to come back and help at practice. And because he said yes, then I showed back up at practice. My son would have been like, hey, I don't like having you here. I would not have shown up at practice the next time they practiced. I wouldn't have, but your kids are going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have a fail forward moment? Everybody's got to answer this one. Something you thought was going to set you back. Everybody's got to answer this one.
You know what's funny about that is, the last couple of days I've been thinking, I said, he's going to ask me that. I know he's going to ask me that. So I said, where am I going to go with this? And I came up with one, so I was ready for you. So when I first started coaching, which was, I believe it was 1982 or 1983, okay? I was probably about 21, 22 years old, and it was horrific. I mean, just a disaster. I had no clue what I was doing. It was just a mess. So anyway, from that, I said to myself, if I ever do this again, I'm going to make sure I do it right. I will not have that happen to me again. And lo and behold, I had a son. My son started playing. I said, I'm going to coach again. And I believe that by having that bad experience, it made me realize, again, everything that we've been talking about, where I need to hit the books. I need to learn. I need to study. I want to do this right. It's about the kids. And I believe that really, really helped me to get, if you can say I got anywhere, but where I am today.
What's your definition of a mess? Because I know what mine, I think every time, and anytime somebody first gets into it, it's going to be a little messy, and there's a lot of bumps in the road. But what would your definition, so what's an example of what made you feel like it was a mess?
Well, practices weren't what they should be. Okay, so basically, we go out there, we do an IO and maybe hit a little bit, no skill set, work, none of that stuff. And on top of it, coaching during everything that I know now was wrong. Coaching during the game, yelling at kids, after a game, taking them out in right field and, browbeating them. It was just not. And you know what? What's funny about it, and I didn't even know any better at the time, is it didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. And that's what made me say, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. So, I mean, I'm still taking classes now. I take classes with Sheets every Sunday night. I'm still doing it.
What are you getting out of those mostly?
Oh, God, he's unbelievable. So one of the first things he did was had us write a mission statement if we were being hired from, whatever, like my high school. Let's say the Lourdes was hiring me and they said, write us a mission statement, but you can't use I, me, or my and write it. So I did it. I went through, and it's difficult. It's hard to do. But just from that, Ryan, and it was, one night, it was an hour class that we had with him. I learned that, first of all, from my podcast, because one thing with my podcast that it drives me nuts is when I talk about myself. I don't like to do that, but I wind up doing it all the time.
Yeah, but you also have to. And I had a hard time with this when I first started doing it. Because I think people thought I was talking over people. I'm not. I'm trying to get people to clarify. But I think you also have to understand that you do have a wealth of experience in it. So I think you can interject at times as needed to clarify on things, and also speak from I think it's more speaking from your personal experience.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as humans, you just assume everyone's had the same experiences that you have had, and that is not. Everyone is completely different. So that's how I take it now at times, is like I don't ever take for granted what the game of baseball has done for me, but also some of the rooms I've been in and the people that I've been around in the game, that not everybody's gotten to do that. And so that's where I come from at times on that, is that, okay, I do have experience in this that most people probably have not. And that's not anything against anybody else. That's just, I was very fortunate that I was born into a family with a dad that was a college baseball coach that brought me to a lot of things. I was on recruiting trips when I was a kid. There's not too many 6, 7, 8-year-olds can say they went and watched games with a college dad. There's just not. And so, I think as someone that hosts, if you do have experience in that space, I do think you can interject with the guest. And by the way, this is the most I've talked on here, just because you run your own podcast as well, and so that's a little bit of a different one for me, which is great. I like interviewing people that run their own show, because I always pick up things from other people too, because again, you've been doing this a long time, and it's a good learning experience for me as well. And I'm still trying to figure it out.
The thing with that, which a lot of people have said to me, and I am this way, because again, I feel like and I do this even in my coaching. I want to listen more than I speak. Like, I mean, I'm sure you maybe you did notice, maybe you didn't notice, but at the summit, I didn't talk much. I really didn't. I listened, because I don't know, unless I'm dead nuts sure about what I'm saying 100%, I'll say it. But other than that, I say, keep your mouth shut and listen to people who know better. So I like listening to you talk. So I guess that's why. I mean, yeah, because I listen to your podcast every week. Yeah, you don't talk that much.
I try. And that was one of the things with comments, where I'm like, okay, I've got to try to let them get their point and then get clarification. By the way, my mission statement is what I sign off with. So leave it better for those behind you. That has been my mission statement since my fourth year of coaching in college, because that was Mickey Matthews, who just went into the Hall of Fame at JMU for their football team. He came and spoke to our advanced coaching class when I was getting my master's, and that was one of the things that he had mentioned was he had just gotten fired at Baylor. He laid on the sword for his boss, and he goes, and there wasn't all going to be coaches in that class, but he goes, anybody here that wants to be in college athletics, you're going to get a job because somebody just got fired, or you're going to get a job because somebody left for a better job. And he said, your job is to leave it better for those behind you. And that stuck with me and has stuck with me ever since. And that was the same way I was coaching players too. Like, I'm trying to leave it better for them to be better in their own careers, but then also leave it better for the program that they're leaving. And for me, that's a service industry piece. That's a service. You're providing a service for people. If you really attack it that way, that you're trying to leave it better for those behind you, you're going to come at it from a service component where you're trying to make it better for that future generation of players or coaches.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've ever listened to the end of my show, but I leave it with Ken Revisa's statement. I heard that again years ago, and it just hit home with me. And I think that that's so true. really. And I say that all the time about like guys who were former players that become coaches. And I tell them all the time, guys, nobody cares what you did. They don't care where you played. They don't care. What they care about is what can you do for my kid? And that's what's really important. It's about the kids.
What are you looking forward to at the convention?
Oh God, anything and everything. This year is going to be a little different because I guess we're not doing Podcast Row this year. I haven't heard from Kurt. So I'm going to do what I did 2 years ago, where I will do a lot of recordings from there, but I'll have the freedom to trying to think. There's a bunch of guys from the summit group that are going to be speaking. Um, damn it, who was that? Doesn't matter. I'm going to listen. What I did 2 years ago was I'd listen to their presentation and then grab them, bring them out to the lobby and talk about it. I think that's great. So I want to do a lot of that.
I think it's good to do it at that point too, because it's still fresh on the speaker's mind. I know when I spoke in 2012, like you're in the moment and it's a large room and you're going. And so I think it's good to pull them right out of it because you're going to get some really good information from them and then maybe jog their memories a little bit. I always try to help any of the people that are going up there. Talk about meditation stuff. I send stuff to the speakers because
Oh, really?
it's not always the easiest thing in the world to stand up in front of a room that size and do it. So I do send a lot of peak performance stuff to them to help things that I use personally. I use a couple different audios to help me get ready when I do have to go speak because it puts me in a better headspace and I think my performance is better. Performance is performance. I don't care if you're a coach, player, actor, musician. It all comes from the same space. So if you can train yourself to get into that frame of mind and get into the present moment, I think your performance is going to be good. And I really like the butterflies. I know the butterflies bother people, but I think because I've trained so much for it now that if you don't have those, your performance is going to be flat. So, and I think that as a coach, that's what you have to teach your players too is these butterflies are tremendous. You need them to go out and perform. But if you don't help them train for that, then you can get performance anxiety. I would say I get really ramped to go on stage where if somebody that had not trained for that, it probably could be debilitating where you'd have a hard time getting on stage.
Right.
Where now it basically centers me in and I actually enjoy those butterflies.
I can tell you that I'm one of them. I mean, when I have to do the time management part of the USA Baseball Community clinics, I'm not talking to a lot of people. I'm talking to maybe 10 people, and I freeze up. So I'm going to be bothering you to help me
Pick one
because
person. Honestly, that's the best thing. You're basically having a conversation with one person. There's I don't know 6,500 seats in 2012. I literally picked people out in the crowd, and I was having a conversation with that one person, and I think it eliminates some of the extra noise with that, where you're really
wow,
just focused on one person. And you're having a conversation with one person.
yeah, because I have one coming up this winter that I'm very new to going and speaking to groups. So somebody had asked me to come and speak to their organization, and I'm going to do it because I think it's something that I could possibly get involved in. But I'm frightened.
And practice, practice, practice. Clarify your thoughts. And practice as much as you can with it. And it's not a fake thing. Just go through it over and over. Put yourself in that setting. I always do run throughs on any stage that I'm going to speak on. I always do run throughs before. I'll do multiple run throughs just to get comfortable. I think it's the same thing you do for your players. You want them to be comfortable. If you're going to a new field to play, you want to help them get acclimated. I think it's the same thing with coaching and speaking is you have to get acclimated for the environment that you're in. Make sure your equipment works. Like those are all small things, but they do allow you to become more comfortable because
Sure.
you're not going up there blind.
Yeah.
But it's tough. When you look at, I think it's ahead of people dying. I think speaking in public at times for some people, but if you can train yourself to do it, it's enjoyable. Honestly, it really is because you do feel like you're giving back. That not everybody gets to do that. Anytime anybody's hesitant on that, I always try to give them a nudge where I will help you. I will help you get through this because
Yeah.
it's gratifying when you do it. It really does suck you in.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that I want to do it. So I'm not going to give up on it. And I think by, doing this is a travel organization. It's a stepping stone. Just go and talk to the boys and just do more. Like you said, more and more and more. And eventually, like even with my podcast, I remember when I first did it, I was like this, now I enjoy it. I love it.
It's just reps, like anything else. It's like getting reps. All right,
Yeah.
what's some final thoughts before I let you go?
Final thoughts. One of the things that I'm really grateful for is that the time that I've been able to spend with the ABCA. I've only been a member for a very short time. Actually, I'm looking at my card now. 8 years I've been with the ABCA, and the people that I have met through this organization and have become friends with is just incredibly amazing. I feel like almost everybody I meet almost becomes an instant friend where I could, just pick up my phone anytime and I could text anybody that I've met and they're all receiving of it. That to me is something that I wish everybody could experience and see what that's like to know that there's, I don't know, how many members are there now? 18,000?
We're getting close. It's getting up there. I think we're at 16.5 now, so it's getting up there.
Okay, so 16,000 people have your back. That's pretty powerful. And where you could walk down a hall and you could talk to a Tim Corbin and he'll shake your hand and say hello. And people out there, listen, go out there and join the ABCA if you're not a member.
And even if you're not, my email address is on the back end of this. Email me. I help non-members too. They eventually become members, but we're here to help baseball as a whole. So I get it. Not everybody can be a member at times. They're sometimes financially or whatever. But I think the more that you're around it, you're like, okay, this is a no-brainer for me to do that just because of what you talked about. You find your tribe. Anybody that hasn't been to our convention, get to our convention because you'll look around and you'll be like, okay, this is my tribe. I found my people here.
Yeah. And one other final thought is to, youth coaches out there that are listening is teach the kids the basics, make it fun, make them want to come back the next year. These are all of the bits. It's not about winning. Stop the winning. Okay. Make sure that they're learning. They're learning these basic things of the game. They're easy to teach. Many, many resources out there. Use them. USA Baseball, ABCA, fantastic resources that will help you to help the kids. It's all about the kids.
Okay, for youth coaches listening in, I'm just writing it down. Warm up. All right, just figure out a warm up. Do some base running after that. Do some individual catch play. You could do individual defense before catch play if you wanted to, but after base running, they're going to be good and loose. I have some free arm care exercises. You don't even need equipment for these arm care exercises. I'll show that in the video. Arm care before they play catch, some sort of individual defensive component, team defensive component, hitting, good. Break it down, you're good. If you did those 5-6 things every day with them, they're going to be good, plenty good with just that.
Absolutely.
Keep it simple
Absolutely.
and get creative. So, Jimmy, thanks as always. I appreciate your time, sir. And
Ryan, thanks for having me.
Augusta.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming up quick. I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for having me. This was an honor.